Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path.
Good morning, and welcome to today's reading through the Psalms, where we'll be reading and reflecting in Psalm number 14 today. But before I get into the Psalm, I just want to take a moment to say how much we appreciate those who have offered kind words of encouragement to us as we've been going through these Psalms each week. I appreciate so much not only the encouragement that you have offered, those who have benefited from these videos, but also appreciate so much the men who have participated in teaching these videos so far. Alan Sienestrang, Chris Benson has actually not only been doing some of the teaching, but he also edits these videos. And also John Schultz has participated in doing these videos. I appreciate them so much. Obviously, Alan and I do a lot of work together in our other study. Chris has given so much of his time and knowledge with technology and helping with this. And then John is new to our church, but he's jumped right in and helping with the efforts here. And I just appreciate them so much. And we look forward to having other men as well. We've had some who have expressed that they'd like to participate in this. You are more than welcome to do so. You just let us know which psalm you'd like to read and talk about, and we'll get you on the schedule so you can help with this effort as well. Just thank you so much. We appreciate the encouragement, and we hope it's been a blessing to you as we've been doing this year, and hope it continues to be a blessing to you as we continue throughout the rest of this year reading and reflecting in the Psalms. As I mentioned, today's psalm is number 14. Let's read it together. I'm going to be reading from the Christian Standard Bible, Psalm 14. The fool says in his heart, "There's no God." They are corrupt, and they do vile deeds. There is no one who does good. The Lord looks down from heaven on the human race to see if there is one who is wise, one who seeks God. All have turned away. All alike have become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. Will evildoers never understand? They consume my people as they consume bread, and they do not call on the Lord. Then they will be filled with dread, for God is with those who are righteous. You sinners frustrate the plans of the oppressed, but the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that Israel's deliverance would come from Zion. When the Lord restores the fortunes of his people, let Jacob rejoice, let Israel be glad. Just a couple of opening notes on this psalm. The first thing you might recognize is that this sounds very familiar to another psalm, Psalm 53. In fact, almost 3/4 of the psalm is identical to Psalm 53, though there's a little difference at the end, and we'll note that once we get a few weeks down the road and get to Psalm 53. But I also want to note from this psalm something that the other guys have been doing in their reflections is talk about the type of psalm that this is. This is a psalm that some might see as lament, how David is dreading the fact of the current state of the world. But maybe more so this would be a psalm of wisdom, showing the realities. If you want to live in this way, then this is going to be the outcome of your ways. But then also you have the other side of it, like we saw back in Psalm number 1, where you have those two roads. We have the evil road, which leads to destruction, but then we have the good road, which leads to God upholding people and helping them to prosper. Here we have the wisdom and the teaching from David that you don't need to take the road of the fool. And if you do so, then prepare to experience that destruction. But instead you need to lean upon the Lord and focus on him as your rock and as your salvation. And the last portion of the psalm gets more to that point as it looks towards the future, where the Lord is going to uphold those who are his. But looking at this psalm to begin with, this is a familiar psalm to us, and probably more so in our age, because this is a psalm, in particular verse number 1, that we quote often in this age of skepticism. There are so many who live today in this way. They live as if there is no God. And that type of lifestyle, that way of living, well, that causes one to be considered, as David says, a fool. Now, this word for fool, the word Nabal, might sound familiar to us because it's actually a guy's name from 1 Samuel chapter 25. The wicked man, we pronounce his name Nabal. He was a very stubborn man. He was an arrogant man. He caused David lots of issues while he was on the run from Saul. And it doesn't surprise us then that man acting in that way has that type of name with that connotation. And then we have this type of person here who doesn't live as if there's a God, whether that is outright saying that there is no God, or whether that's more of practical atheism, just living as if there is no God, both of these are the same type of people. They're fools. They are people who are not living according to wisdom. Wisdom which would certainly lead to a knowledge of God and a living for Him. But what does the fool look like? Well, what's the result of his living as if there is no God? Well, David says that they're corrupt, there are vile deeds, and especially whenever you have a large group of people that are acting this way, then it's not hard to think that there is no one who does any good. And what's especially sad about this is the fact that the Lord is looking for those who would be wise, looking for those who would be seeking to call upon His name. And as David pictures it, as he frames this, the Lord looking down to see if there is one who is good, to see if there is one that looks out for him, he says, no, there's not. They've all turned away. They've all become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. Certainly we could probably empathize with David in the feeling of his day, how he felt as he looked around and saw the general nature of the people, and how we look around and see the same general nature of people even today. The question is, from David, will they ever understand? He doesn't see this as them being mentally deficient or unable to understand, but it's more of a willful disregard. They are willfully living as if there is no God. Will they ever change that, David asks? Will they ever admit that there is someone out there that is higher and mightier than they are? But until that point, David says they're going to consume people, they're going to take advantage of people, they're going to hurt people, and they're all doing this as they continue to not call on the name of the Lord. The mistreatment of others, it goes hand in hand with disrespect towards God. If I'm not going to acknowledge God, then why should I acknowledge the value of those who are made in His image? Again, those two go hand in hand. Yet, as we get to verse number 5, he says that they will be filled with dread, for God is with those who are righteous. Again, we can take this back to Psalm 1, that there's two different paths. The one who says there is no God is going to have dread in their life because there is no peace apart from God. If you deny God, you do not have peace. Yet if you want peace, then you're going to be like the righteous person who seeks to serve God and to live for Him. The fool who says there is no God, he'll be filled with dread, while those who seek to serve God, they're going to be filled with peace. And then verse 6, you sinners frustrate the plans of the oppressed, but the Lord is his refuge. Sinners think that they are destroying the helpless. They think that they have the upper hand. They think that they have true power to do whatever it is they want to in this life, that they can truly just grind people down until they are nothing. And yet God says, through David, no, those who you oppress, who you are oppressing, they are the ones who truly have a refuge. And their refuge is not found in this world. It's not found in something of creation, but it's found outside of creation. It's found in their faith and trust in God. As David looks about and he writes this psalm, he sees a world that is corrupt. He sees a vile world. He sees a world, again, whether or not they're openly admitting there is no God, they're certainly living like there is no God. And which is why he ends this psalm looking towards a better future. Oh, that Israel's deliverance would come from Zion when the Lord restores the fortune of His people. Let Jacob rejoice, let Israel be glad. Whenever I think of what I know from this psalm about God, what I come to learn about God from this psalm, I come to realize that regardless of the current climate that I live in, and again, I think we can empathize and sympathize with David in our own current climate, where it seems that so many people are living as if there is no God, we look for a better future. We look for a future when those of us who are faithful to God, who trust in Him, we will be validated. We will be shown to have put our trust where trust truly deserves to be put, which is in God. God is faithful, and He will uphold us. Though the foolish man might live as if there is no God, God will hold them accountable. Whether they want to acknowledge Him or not, one day they will acknowledge Him. I've heard it said many times that there will be no atheists on the judgment day because everyone will see that there truly is a God. Yet I do want to give a New Testament tie-in before we conclude today, which comes from Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 3. This psalm is quoted a number of times, maybe at least alluded to by Paul in Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 3. Just as the psalm says that the fool says in his heart there is no God, we can read in Romans chapter 1 and verse number 18, for God's wrath is revealed from heaven against all godlessness and unrighteousness of people who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth, since what can be known about God is evident among them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, that is, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen since the creation of the world, being understood through what he has made, and as a result, people are without excuse. There is no excuse to be a fool. There is no excuse to say there is no God. For though they knew God, they did not glorify him as God or show gratitude. Instead, their thinking became worthless, and their senseless hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. As I said, we can see a great great similarity between the world of David, the world that Paul lived in, and even the world that we live in today. And that the other part that Paul quotes, is from chapter 3, where he says in verse number 9 of Romans, "What then? Are we better off? Not at all. For we have already charged that both Jews and Gentiles are all under sin, for it is written, there is no righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands God. There is no one who seeks God." The reality is we can easily fall into being included in these people. But thanks be to God, through his grace, his mercy, and the gospel that was given great power through Jesus and what he did, we can be counted as being separate from these people. Yet it's not just that we ought to be separate from them in word. It's easy for them to say there is no God, just as it is easy for us to say there is a God. But yet, what truly matters is our behavior. Will our behavior be like that of the fool who says there is no God? Or will we be like the person who is described here in Psalm 14, who God is with, he is with the righteous, and the Lord is his refuge? May we strive to be like those who look forward to the validation of God because we believe in him and we trust in him and we live like those things are true in our lives. May we be like them and not fall into the pitfall of destruction that is coming for the fool. Thank you so much for joining us today. May God bless you as you go throughout the rest of this day and go throughout the rest of this week. Hope you'll tune in on Friday as John delivers a reading and reflection from Psalm 15. Everybody take care and God bless.